On this segment, I want to talk about the different mindsets of guys in prison, especially those that have long, lengthy sentences and have been in for quite some time. So first of all, like in prison, you could kind of like order any kind of book. You know what I mean? They would monitor the book when they come in. So I'm not saying you could get a book on how to build bombs or a book on how to escape prison unless you find that within the pages of the book. But basically, you could almost like order any kind of book you want. And so say, for example, a person, you know, they figure that since they're going to be in prison for a while, they might, get a chance to shoot their shot at one of the guards, right? And so people in prison, that have lengthy sentences, they're not in a rush. Time is on their side. So one of them may see one of the females that they like, and maybe give them an eye or something, maybe or maybe not. Or maybe it's a CO that's working the unit. So a dude, he'll go buy books on body language. He'll go buy books on seduction and books on attraction and all that stuff. And they'll read that stuff and they'll study that stuff like it's a Bible. And they'll study that stuff and they'll study that stuff and then it becomes like a science to them once they study it and put their own twist to it. And then they execute. And so according to all the science that they read, they understand what the response is going to be from the female, and they understand where she at right now in the process. So they understand, if they talking to a female, if they lean into the right or they lean into the left, or do they got their arms crossed, or when you talk to them, are they move a little close to you or standoffish, whether they give you physical contact, whether they touch your hand, whether they smile, whether they frown, whatever. So wherever she's at in that process, he already know the level where she are. And so he's not gonna make no move outside of what he studied in the book and the process to where she at in his relationship to starting some type of physical communication with her. So he already know, people in prison, they not, they not smile, they not smiling at their woman like they used to, they're not giving her the attention like they used to, so he already know these things. And so within the process, and then if it takes a year, it's okay because he had time. But he understands. And so once he do this, he understands that she's going to respond like that. So she's at level 2 of where he at in the process. And then in a minute, whatever little things that he do walk by, he may not speak in 2 days. He may not speak in 10 days. He may just give her eye. He might act upset. He might act whoop-de-whoop. He may act a certain way. But all of his acts are in conjunction with the studies of seduction that he learned in books. And so in a matter of time, people get caught up. You know, people, you know, women fall in love with men in prison. You know, and then some of them, sometimes it'll get sexual, and sometimes it won't get sexual. Sometimes it'll build up. So sometimes, you know, I remember back in the days, cigarettes was the money. So if you wanted something from somebody, you would pay in cigarettes. And so sometimes, you know, you'll have some inmates, some convicts, you know, having women as well as men bring contraband into the institution. You had some guys that box. You could get boxing books in. Then you got guys that teach people how to box. Then you got other sciences. You got religion. You know, those of us that been in the wild, we study religion. We don't just read it. You know what I mean? We go down to we got time. You know, we got time to pull the encyclopedias out. We got time to trace this thing all the way back to where Christ was born, and all the way back to what the weather was like at the time he was born, and go back to, you know, how could he be in the manger in this part of the year when it's freezing in this part of the land, and this and that, and what was his original name, and how did he look, and what was his ethnicity, so we have a time to not only read scripture, but we have time to parse scripture. So we know the truth in scripture. And you know, and it's deep. You know, and I've heard of a person said that if people were to start telling the truth about religion now, you know, it would run most of the people totally crazy, because that's what they believed in. That's what they counted on, right? Then you have brothers that meditate. You know, brothers meditate so long, they learn the science of it. They might be able to levitate. They might be able to do this. They might be able to do that. And then you got some brothers in prison that they are so manipulative that the system tells the guards that they can't even talk to this person. They can't have conversations with this person because this person is manipulative. And like those dudes that's like that, bro, they don't be dressing fly. You know, you might have one guy, they say he's a master manipulator. You know, you might see him, he got his little his trumpet, he played the trumpet. You know, he be all to himself playing this trumpet, doing this thing. But they say, man, this guy here, you know, this guy is very manipulative. So, like I said, COs don't speak to him. Right? Then you got guys that's in the system that's hustling. Man, you got guys in the system, you know, probably made more money in prison than they made out of prison. Cause you got a guy, he run the drugs. You got a guy, he run the number racket and the tickets and all of that stuff. And I'm talking about, like, you know, I've seen one of our homies, like I walked in the room with one of our homies, you know, he allowed me to walk in, but man, they was cutting up like pounds of weed. So you had, when I got to Atlanta, around 1996, man, it was a guy there, because they had heard my name on the street. It was a guy there that was ready to hook me up with a guy that sold pounds of weed in prison. So you could buy a pound, 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds of weed. I'm talking about not no grind up stuff in prison. You could buy ounces, as many as you want in prison. And so I remember I used to see that. I used to see the number record. And I used to see, You know, they sell that heroin on the compound, and them junkies on the compound, and I'm like, how? You know what I mean? And you know, and then come to find out, you know, the system, you know, is behind that stuff. You know, because I refuse to believe that you can't stop, or a person can't stop heroin and crack and all that stuff from getting into prison. So yeah, man, so guys are into a lot of things in prison, and they sharp with it. I mean, on a high level. And I remember those guys, man, those guys that they said was manipulative. Those guys, they don't spend their time on manipulating people like me or people like me. They want to challenge somebody. They want to finesse and manipulate smart people. Talking about the manipulator, right? And so you have it's different pockets of people that's highly intelligent in a whole lot of fields. And you have your African religion, you have your science, you have your for example, I was in the I joined the Nation of Islam. And so in the Nation of Islam, we had to remember and recite a lot of lessons. And they could call you right now and you have to run that stuff off. I mean, you could be reciting material that you have memorized in your mind, and you could be there for 30 minutes quoting that stuff, right? And so once I learned that science, at some point, my brother and I, we was able to get back in the court system because a guy had wrote some stuff and got us a hearing back in court. And so if I had 10 or 12 issues, maybe a 15 or 10 pages or 7 pages of my legal work, man, I had learned all of that stuff and I memorized it in my mind. So when they asked me about an issue, when I went back to court, when they asked me about an issue, man, I was able to run, yes, that was so-and-so, the Board of Education that's coming out at 4B1.1, in the lexicon, you can find it in 2SC3 paragraph 6, and it states the charge of so-and-so and the case law that supports it, case law so-and-so out of Arizona support this case, and rendering the verdict being so-and-so. And so when my wife brought the prayer warriors to Brunswick, Georgia to that hearing, her mouth was wide open. She was watching me. She had never seen that before. And when she spoke with me later on, she say, babe, you a lawyer. How did you do that stuff? I say, man, when you fighting for your life, you could be some of anything that you need to be. So at that point, you know, I was a lawyer. I was able to defend myself with the issues that I had with my case, and I memorized all that stuff in my mind and was able to recite it to a T. And so that's why when you see brothers that coming out, you know, that been in a while, they know a lot. And if people engage us because we know a lot, we learned a lot. But if we don't get engaged, then we don't bring some of that stuff up out of us that we know. And so yeah, so people that been in prison for a long time, Yeah, man, we are really, really intelligent, and we really have the mindset to do great things in this world. So here's sunny day, 305 degrees. You know, just talking a little bit about the mindset and the different things that people get into while they're in prison. Peace.